the biggest problem that I face on a day-to-day basis is that the sphere of marketing now is so wide. The manner in which people receive messages from firms is so broad. You're seeing you're seeing messages being put in front of you every time you pick up your mobile phone, every time you watch TV, every time you go on a streaming service, every time you go on YouTube, every time you pick up a magazine. It's all funded by that. It's totally overwhelming. And it becomes all of this just noise that comes at you, and it's really hard for people to kind of really place value against a message. And we put so much effort into thinking hard around what's going to resonate with somebody, and whether that resonance is on a functional level, a rational level, or an emotional level. There's got to have a resonance in that message, and we really struggle to try and find the right avenues to get those words out and in front of people, where they'll take notice of them and they'll then go on and act upon those messages, or at least get to a point where they feel that message deserves some further research. So my challenge on a day-to-day basis is sort of, number one, what is the message? I don't know. What triggers this person to come and talk to Box versus this person over here? We've got people who come to us and talk to us about cost. We've got people who come to us to talk about us about high-end architecture, and those and they aren't necessarily mutually exclusive conversations, but holy man, it makes it tricky. And then I've got to work out, well, okay, I've now got all of these sort of tools in my tool chest, which lever...
Like 100 tools.
Yeah, exactly. It's literally 100 tools. Which tool do I deploy to get this particular message out in front of people? And then I have to then make sure that message is consistent with what actually goes on within the firm. I can't, as a marketeer and as a person, as a human being, go out and say to somebody, we're going to do it like this, but then find out through 6, 12 months, 18 months later that actually what I said at the start of the message isn't being followed through at the end of the message, and that's pretty tricky.
It's hard.
Yeah,
it's hard to get, I think, all the pieces. Like, as I was saying before the interview started, we started doing our own marketing. I have so much more empathy for what you do now, but it's even my agency is 6 people compared to how many people got a Box.
Well, what are we now? We're 17 in the office, about the same number out on site, so actually building on site.
Right.
So we're not a massive firm, and I don't think we ever really want to be a massive firm, but it's a lot of different stuff coming at you.
I mean, to even get 6 people aligned is hard. I can't even imagine what it must be like for you, right? It's almost like the paradox of choice, right? You have too many options, and so it's hard to choose any of them. It's hard to choose.
Yeah, it is. It is hard. And there's been such a big focus on digital, and I mean, obviously, this is very pertinent to you guys.
Yeah, of course.
There is such a big focus on digital, and everyone thinks that digital has been this huge salvation for marketeers. And I think in the experiment we're running currently, with your blessing, is really proving that maybe that's not 100% the case. Digital is a channel within marketing which is insanely important, very, very important. But is it where should we be putting 100% of our effort? I'm not comfortable with that just at the moment. I feel that there's a lot of validity and a lot of weight coming back into other methods of marketing, maybe more traditional styles of marketing. Silly things, how we choose our font, how we choose our colours. We're obviously a modernist architecture firm. We want to be seen as a modernist architecture firm. So we had a long discussion this morning talking about changing the font that we use for some of our marketing to make sure that people just get that gut feel of this is a modernist sort of firm that I'm dealing with. And, it's so many different pieces of the puzzle that you've got to tie together. It becomes tricky.
That's exactly what you're saying, right? Like, font is a variable for you.
Yeah.
You had a long discussion this morning. How long was the discussion?
About an hour and a half.
An hour and a half on font.
Correct.
Like, how much goes into a banner or an email, or a series of emails, or whatever whenever you feature in Home Garden. I can't
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's probably the biggest challenge I face on a day-to-day basis, is just understanding where that messaging's going and what it needs to be.
Yeah.
If I think about my normal day, because I'm wearing two hats, I'm kind of doing the sales side and I'm doing the marketeering sort of messaging sort of side of the firm. My average day is probably about 60% dealing with clients, trying to make sure that the message that they've received and that they understand is actually happening within the firm, making sure that they are actually receiving the standard of service that they're after, and then sort of the other 40% is taking those learnings of actually talking to people, hearing what they've heard from our advertising, and making sure that my advertising message is on point and it is actually getting across accurately.
Yeah.
So it's nice to have both sides of the role.
I spoke with Jody, sales and marketing manager, recently about this, and we find that, like, marketing, do you agree, is marketing a qualitative investment, in that it is a thing that you need to invest in, but it takes time to build? Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, I've been with Box now for sort of probably about 18 months, and in 18 months I've been working on the singular challenge of ensuring that the messaging around Box is the fact that we're an architectural design build firm. We are not prefabricated homes anymore, we are not modular homes, we are this architectural end of the market. Mm-hmm. In 18 months, even yesterday, I still had people coming to me saying people are still receiving the messaging that we're a modular prefabricated builder. Yep. I've been working on that project for 18 months.
Right.
It is a long burn. Everything's a long burn.
Right?
Yeah.
Do you sometimes find that when you are doing a sales proposal or you're managing clients that honestly that investment, because it's a long burn, do you find that the task gets sidelined a lot?
Yeah, absolutely, it does. Yeah, and all of a sudden you just get dragged into all this other stuff that's going on in your life, and you're like, hang on, I'm kind of losing vision of what I was actually meant to be doing this week. And then you get to the end of the week and you've got your kind of key points that I've tried to check off, and you haven't even got through half of them. And it's just, this is really frustrating. So, and that's where dealing with an agency or and we do. Box is quite good at recognising where we have an emptiness within the firm, and we need to pull somebody else in to fill that. Yeah. That's where working with an agency or working with a contractor or a consultant is really powerful. Like, that works well for us.
Actually, obviously I've got a vested interest because I run an agency, but in general, you don't have time, you have a lot of decisions to make.
Yep.
How can an agency help you the most? Like, if you had the perfect agency relationship, what would that look like?
Totally open, pretty frank.
Yep.
I came to you a couple of months ago, and I think I said at the time I was a bit nervous because we were trying something new and turning some stuff off. Yep. And in my gut, I'm thinking all I'm doing is taking money out of Kim's mouth at the moment, and that kind of is a bit uncomfortable. Sure. But your instant reaction was, no, don't take it out of my mouth for 1 month, take it out for 3 months, because we can't prove. And that's the sort of agency relationships we have to have. We have to have agency relationships where all of a sudden you sit on my side of the table and you 100% recognise where I'm coming from, and you buy into it and say, yep, we'll give it a go. Where maybe you're seeing something that we're not seeing. Don't put yourselves up on a pedestal just because you're a consultant or you're an agent and think that you're the ultimate goal or the ultimate answer to everything. Yeah. Because that's not how it is. It's you just want somebody who's outside of the organisation that you can bounce ideas off of, which haven't been tempered by the fact that you walk in the same front door every day. Yeah. And that's the person that we want within within this firm anyway. That works for us.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. I mean, thank you, and I mean, it totally works for us as well, because we have had. We worked with Box for years.
A lot longer than me.
Like, literally years. So I mean, it would have been terrible of me to not understand the journey that you guys had gone through. For yourself as a marketing manager, the messages changed multiple times because the business has changed in different ways. So of course we would have supported you, whatever. We've had we have enough time in the bank, I think, to have that relationship, which is cool. Okay, and thank you for saying that.
No, but I mean that's the harsh reality of it. You need to be able to sort of poke and prod each other a little bit, and then
definitely.
one of the biggest failings in my overall career over my entire life has been I worked for somebody for 10 years on an incredibly personal project, and we were both very, very vested into it. Probably, arguably, it's hard for me to say. I was more maybe emotionally invested. He was definitely financially more invested than me. But to me, we kind of levelled out. And I think over the period of that 10 years, we probably came to view each other a little bit. We got complacent with each other. I probably wasn't the best at the end of that relationship, and he wasn't the best either. And it's probably because we had that complacency that things started to go south.
Yeah.
Where if you've got a long-term relationship, if you can have that sort of atmosphere of challenging each other and saying, I think you're doing this wrong, or maybe there's a different option here, and it keeps it fresh, and it stops you resting on your laurels, stops you getting complacent, just turning up every month for yet another update status meeting.
Yeah.
Is there a different way to do this? Do we need to do a different report? Do you actually even give a rat's about what I'm telling you? You just got to have that conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Challenges, I think, really what defines. If you're too complacent, that's what I found just in the normal running of a business, right? Like if it's too complacent, if no one challenges you, if everyone thinks the same way, it's actually long term, I don't think it's a good thing.
Yeah, no, I don't think so either. And I mean, Box is pretty hard because we're filled with people like myself who are kind of selling the dream.
Sure.
Great, cool. I'll sell you a bunch of roses. They might be dandelions, but that's it should never be like that. But then I've got creative people in the firm. Then we've got real cold, hard, practical people in the firm who physically pick up tools and physically do stuff. We've got accountants. We've got the quantity surveyors. Such a broad variety of different types of people within the business. It makes it really quite challenging, and so you never rest on your laurels because there's always someone having a different viewpoint, and that's really important.
Yeah,
so
definitely. That's great.
Yeah.
Quickly, COVID-19 impacted the business yet?
No, we definitely have been impacted. We've had one client place their project just on a temporary pause until we understand where we're at. The business itself, we are structured such that we can work remotely. We're expanding that structure so more people can work remotely. Obviously, we're very heavy on some of the graphics and some of the design packages, so literally physical size of a computer makes a difference. So the architectural graduates find it difficult to be remote. People like myself, not so much. Phones, our phone system, we've just recently changed our phone system, and we're pushing that implementation through as quickly as possible so that we can step back and start working a little bit more distant. As far as service levels for our clients and on build sites, working every day at toolbox meetings every day. The guys are on site talking about it, saying what can we do, are we doing the right thing, have we got any issues that we need to be aware of. At this stage, no noticeable impact, but just beyond that one project that's placed a slight pause. We'll see how it plays out over time. It's very unusual times to be in business. It's an unusual feel in the market.
Past the weekend, right?
It's weird, man. It's really weird. But I think, we'll do as much as we can and just be a human being through it all, really.
Yeah, totally.
So.
All right, Andrew. Look, thanks so much for your time today.
Thank you, Kim. Always a pleasure.
Thanks.
There's a sparkle